Welcome to the second round of the New Blitz tournament. Now we are playing the guy who is rated around 2000, and he started with the first move, knight f3. I went knight f6, he went d4, I went d5, and he went for the bishop g5 Tora attack. e6, knight e2, bishop e7, e3, very standard. I just want to play natural, not to complicate too much. Now the ideas for black are to break with c5. I went castles first, he went directly bishop d3, so this Tora attack looks like a London system, but improved version because bishop is already pinning the knight. And it could be uncomfortable if black is not familiar with the counterplay plans. c5 is very standard, c3, knight c6. This is the place for the knight, not on d7. Do not place the knight on d7 against London, against the Tora attack. He went directly knight e5, and this is a very interesting move. Now I should maybe go knight e7 and went for the trades, but instead I went h6. So very powerful move on h6 now is h4, because if I take, he will open up the h-line and he will make a counterplay. But instead he took on f6, which surprised me. He took the knight on c6, we made a lot of trades, and he decided to win the pawn. So is this pawn worth of material? No. Why? Because he gave me a bishop pair and he also gave up the center. He thinks that defending this pawn will be easy. b4 seems like a very nice move, but it can be played because bishop takes e3. Queen e7 is even provoking more to think about this pawn, and if white loses this pawn, white is just much worse because of my bishop pair and the center, pawn center. So at that point, he can't defend with b4 because of c3 pawn, but he can go knight b3. Knight on b3 is a solid piece, but pawn would be preferable to stay in front. I went directly e5, so I want to stop some knight e4 later and also just open up my light square bishop. White is facing some center problems. He went castles, I went directly e4, he went with the bishop back, and now look at this beautiful pawn chain. I went bishop to e6 because I'm not comfortable with c4 breaks. Most probably I should earlier put this a5. He went bishop a6 to stop my a5, but I also didn't want to play a5 earlier because then he will play a4 and then suddenly my pawn on a5 is always a target from this knight and my rook will be there, and I want my rook here and then start attacking on the king side. So after rook b8, I just want to froze the knight on b3, so he can't jump here because b2 pawn is hanging. He went rook b1 in terms of protecting this one. I went bishop e5, and now suddenly I'm preparing devastating attack on the king side. So look at these bishops, just compare these bishops and also compare these two pieces. Completely odd on the rim of the board. Like, they have a nice squares, but if you don't know how to use them and create a counterplay, everything doesn't matter. He went g3, that's my plan, exposing his pawns. More I provoke him to expose his pawns, the attack would be easier for me. So g3, now light squares are weaknesses. At that point, I should just started playing something like maybe, g6, king g7, followed by h5, h4, something along that way. Instead I went king h7. You just play something here. You can't make a big mistake. You're also trying to put a pressure on your opponent's time because position is closed and definitely black is more comfortable here. h4, that's what I wanted. So he's pushing the pawns, especially on the king side. This doesn't help me for the defense. I went rook g8 and the plan is very obvious. I want to go g5. g5 directly is apparently much better because if you go something like h5, I have bishop h3 and let's say rook e1, and here I can just go f5, f4, and like it's just much better. Instead I went rook g8, he went king to g2, and now again g5. g5 should be on the board. But I went queen to d7 and I missed my chance of proceeding with g5. So this is actually the thing. Once you start planning something, finish your thought. Do not stop there, because it doesn't make no sense to have my rook here, especially now g5 is never possible because he'll take and open up the h-line to attack my king. So I just wasted the time with this rook g8. So always finish your thought, always finish your plan. If it's a bad plan, just finish it, it will make some purpose later. Now when you combine queen d7 and rook g8, it's just pure waste of time. I went bishop g4, he went bishop e2, and suddenly white is slightly better just because he consolidated, king is safer, he brought his bishop back, who was completely out of the game. Rook is also on h1, supporting the h3 square. He went knight e4, now he starts improving the knight, and I'm now in a little bit of trouble because I missed my chance for checkmate attack. Also, his plan is now very simple. He'll push these pawns and actually show why he's up material. He went directly b4, so my attack still looks dangerous, but I can't push f4. My bishop is hanging. If I take here, he might take back with knight or even with queen. I just went h5 because I'm ready for some sacrifice. It's already with f4. On the other side, he's much faster on the queen side, like a4, b5 are very, very annoying. I think a4 here is very annoying, followed by b5. I literally don't know what to do after that, but he instead went for b5. He take back with rook, and that's actually where he made a mistake. He missed the trading process now. Amateur players are usually, not caring about the captures, the forcing moves. Takes, and now the point is queen takes here, bishop takes here, bishop takes d1, and rook takes here. And now I played rook b8, which is blunder. There is very powerful now move for white. It's not bishop c6, it's actually bishop d7 because this restricts my rook coming on c8, also targeting f5, and now white is actually winning. Instead of that, I should went for rook d8 and I have a stable position, but it's still tricky. This bishop is annoying. Rook b8 was mistake, he went for bishop d7, and now I planned something here, how to actually provoke him to open the f line. So I target the bishop, I'm giving this pawn for free, and my plan is if he goes c6, I will sacrifice and then I'll play this and take and hope for the best in this endgame. Instead he took on f5 with g6, I played g6, and now he played bishop e6. So the thing is, now I got the activity and also open f line. I can target his pawns and also create a counterplay. He went c6, and now he's worse because he forgot about my defense with a counterplay. Now my rook is carrying this pawn. He went bishop d7, rook f8, and now he start defending. At this point, I should just start coming closer with my king. And then once I bring the king on c7, I'm totally winning. Instead, I went rook f3, completely wrong plan. He went a4. I took on e3, but this rook is overwhelmed. He played c7, and now I'm very low on time. You can't see the clock because of the lights. I take on c7, he take here, and I take on d7. So this endgame is, of course, a draw, and I can hold this, but it's really hard because white is having active rook while I have a very passive rook. I went king d7. So my plan is now to bring the king over to d6, but anyway, this rook is more active than my rook. He went rook c5, went king f6. I don't have problems here so much. All these moves, of course, are, suspicious from both of us. You can't really make the most accurate moves in this endgame, but you need a plan. I went rook e6, so at least I'm finding some activity. I went king d6, he went g4. Then I went back, so now it's getting trickier and trickier. His rook is active, now he's activating the king, and that's all good, Now I realize that I'm in sort of trouble because I couldn't do anything with my rook on a6. And I'm losing because his king is walking in, then now the rook even restricting my king. He went over. Now I give a check. So you don't have time to defend your pawns. You need to create the counterplay and target their pawns. I'm in a big trouble here. And is there a chance of surviving this endgame? That's a good question. He gave me check on d6. I went king c7. He took the pawn on d5. I took on e3. He went king f4. I still have some hope. Rook e1. Rook to e5. Then I push e3. He took it. And now at this point, I want to provoke the king coming in front. So I can safely play rook e1 and now win the pawn on a5. He should start pushing this pawn with king e6 and d5. Because this pawn is actually the one that wins the game. He started pushing that one. I took on a5. He went check, and this check actually helps me to improve, because this check is not necessary. He should opt for the other side. He went there, I went rook a4, he gave me check, I went down, and now it's a draw because whenever he, you know, tried to crosses there, I have some check and then going up again like Fielder, but he actually flagged here. And I actually won the game. So, you know, always fight until the end, always find the activity in your games, because that brings the most problems to your opponent. That's about a second round. We are 2 out of tour. Not a good game, to be honest. I'm not happy with the middle game progress, but okay. That's it. That's chess. And I'll see you in the next one.